service now. Only love.
Welcome back. You are watching Moving Forward, a program designed to address obstacles in the path of our national development. And one of those obstacles is the great need for service, voluntary service specifically. And helping us to discuss that is Madam Director General of the Bahamas Red Cross Society, Mrs. CarolineTurnquest. Just before the break, we were talking about the International Red Cross and the League of Red Cross Societies. Unfortunately, time does not permit us to go into detail as we would because there's so much to talk about.
Yes,
but what Bahamians must understand is the role that the national organizations plays with the international organizations. In other words, in times of crisis. Tell us how they support us.
Well, in times of crisis, the Red Cross, as you know, we're there. We have been there since, we have been in the Bahamas since...
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the international, how we benefit from them.
Oh, we benefit from them.
Tremendous. See, because I'm telling you why I ask you that. Because often, well, not so much now, but in the past, I would hear people say, oh, you're giving us money to Red Cross, and when there's a disaster in any part of the Caribbean, then they're helping, but who does help us?
That's right.
They need to understand the tremendous international help we receive.
They have only to hear of a need, and the phone rings.
That's right.
I'm telling you my personal experience. And what do you need, Mrs. Turnquest? Do we need to send in, we need to deploy persons? Do we need to send help in? Do you need funds? And so we can launch what we call a draft, a disaster relief emergency fund. And we let them know what's needed. Once the head of the country decides that, you know, this is a state of an emergency and we need help, the help is on the way. So it's like, while we may be in the Bahamas, we are so intricately involved with what we call the movement of Red Cross. So it's not like, you know, I'm in the Bahamas and I don't know who, you know, the head of the Red Cross is. You know, we're intricately involved. We have emails back and forth during the day. So we are just like how we here in New Providence, and we have, you know, someone down in Cat Island, you know, intricately involved with them. They pick up the phone, Mr. Turnquest, I need such and such. It's just how it is within the International Federation. So once I got involved with this movement, I realized it was not anything strange. It was totally, you know, all-inclusive. It was like I'm part of a family.
It is, that's the word, it is a family.
I am part of a family. And so, like I always said to successive prime ministers, when there's a disaster, you just let me know how the Red Cross can help you.
That's right. It's like a family, and not only in a time of disaster. I like to emphasize that because I recall that when I served as president at one of the official meets somewhere, I forgot where it was, I realized that there were bilateral support.
Yes.
And we appealed to one of the national societies, I think it was the Canadian National Society, and the very first ambulatory vehicle that Red Cross received in the Bahamas was a gift, a donated gift. So I'm saying we get help from the...
And that continues
today. I know.
Continues.
And we want people to know that.
We have been so blessed by the American Red Cross.
Yes.
For the past, ever since I came on, and I volunteered since 2000, they've always supported us in terms of we had to travel to meetings. There were no funds here.
Yes.
We were able to get a traveling stipend. We were able to have accommodations paid by them. And they actually came in country and done a number of projects since I was on board.
I know, I'm familiar with some of them.
Yes, we've done the
in our community.
the HIV project. We did the Saving Lives project. We have actually did micro projects in communities. For instance, in Andros, we would have donated 3 water trailer tankers that you can just hook up to a vehicle, like a truck, if there's a fire in the community, and actually take it there and out that fire. So we have done the community decided what they wanted, and then we wrote and put in the proposal, and they actually funded them.
That's right.
So we have been on the ground for the past few years, just working in communities. Even here in Nassau, we have been working with 6 communities, of course, Baintown
Oh,
being
yes.
one of
Yes,
them,
you've
where
done great work there.
we trained persons and formed what we call a community emergency response team, our CERT team, along with NEMA would have done the training with us. So the Red Cross is here. It's on
And
the
don't
ground.
forget, people, we are fortunate in that we don't have to be on the receiving end.
Yes,
Like a lot of other countries.
That is so important.
And so we are fortunate, but don't believe that we wouldn't get it. I recall, this was many years ago, this would have been, 1983, 84. We were at a conference in Geneva, and they were talking about a blood procurement program
Yes.
that they had. And so I asked them, they were having a training program in Quito, Ecuador. And I asked them, can somebody from the Bahamas get on this? And they said, yes, but you have to move within 48 hours. I rushed to the telephone, called the then Director General, Mrs. Lottie Tynes, and I said, you have somebody who can leave in 48 hours to go to Quito. We have a scholarship, as we call it, as you know,
Yes.
which is full funding. Travel, accommodations, everything. And I recall distinctly Mrs. Tynes organized for Mrs. Persis Rogers, who was then the nursing officer,
Yes.
to go. And within 48 hours, that's the kind of response that
Yes.
we can get
Yes.
from other societies if we need it. And she went, she took the course, came back better equipped to serve the Bahamas.
Yes.
So we receive a lot of benefits
Oh, yes.
from the International Red Cross. And we just want to dispel that mindset that we are always giving from the Bahamas Red Cross, but we receive a lot.
Yes, we do.
And I thank God, as I said earlier, that we don't need more than we have needed in the past.
Even as a volunteer, prior to my taking over the helm, I traveled
That's right.
for the Red Cross, received numerous trainings in various countries. So I know the value of
That's
the Red
right.
Cross and the work that we do. And hence people couldn't understand, why would I leave a job, pay me that kind of money to go and take
But
over
of
the Red
course,
Cross? They wouldn't understand.
They wouldn't understand. And when you get involved and you see
Yes.
the importance of helping people, not only in your country, but in other countries. I recall we sent teams to assist in other countries during times of disaster in the past. But I'm very proud of the Bahamas Red Cross
Yes.
Society, the work it has done in the past.
And as we speak, we have Mr. Philip Johnson, who's been a volunteer since inception, from he was a young person. He is in St. Kitts working with the persons that are displaced there because of the Hurricane Irma. So, we have persons, volunteers travel all the time to do training. We have, out of Freeport, Grand Bahama, Mr. Rinaldi Forbes. He is a trainer of trainers in the first aid and CPR training, and he travels through the Caribbean,
Yes.
training persons in first aid. We have a trainer of trainers here that actually travels to those islands
And that's important
and does the training.
to prepare people. Listen, when we see the response of the Red Cross and its volunteers, we sometimes assume, well, that's natural, that's training,
Yes.
preparation. There are training courses all around, not only in the physical response,
Yep.
but also in organizing response to disasters.
Yes.
That
And
is a
we've-
science.
Yes, and we've taken it, the Federation has taken it a step further in that we actually have an e-learning platform where you can go on and take courses, get your certificate. We try to start persons off with what we call WRC, the World of Red Cross, but there are any number of self-development courses. There's, if you want to train in disaster. And I wish that people would look at, the young people would look at being in this arena as a career.
Oh, yes.
Disaster management is actually a career. And you don't even have to work here in the Bahamas. You can work around the world with the Federation. You can post in Geneva and they can send you to Australia, wherever the need is,
Yes.
with your qualifications to
And
work.
sad to say that we are experienced, by we I mean the world,
Yes.
is now experiencing more disasters of different types, and so
And more frequent.
yeah, and more frequent and more deadly. So persons who are trained in disaster preparedness, relief, management, they're going to be in great demand as I see it. But the Bahamas Red Cross Society has been around a long time.
Yes.
And as I'm talking to you, I realize that it's been a very stable organization.
Yes, it
You are
has.
only the third, I think the third. You're only the third Director General, Mrs. Lottie Tynes and Mrs. Marina Glinton.
Yes,
And yourself?
Well, we had for 2 years.
Interim.
Yes,
I know, I
prior
remember.
to me coming
I
on.
remember
I was
that.
waiting to retire.
Yes.
And we had Miss Kim Sawyer, who
Yes.
generously was loaned to us.
Yes,
By
for a short
the
time.
Department of Social Services.
And there was an interim person between Mrs. Tynes and Mrs. Glinton, but it has been surprisingly stable.
Yes.
The leadership has been stable and has performed extremely well. The Red Cross came to the Bahamas, during the war for
Yeah,
1945.
1939.
Yeah, during the war, 39.
Well,
and
the British Red Cross.
yes, the British Red Cross, we were a colony.
Yes.
And we were a branch
Yes, we were.
of the British Red Cross until we became independent.
Yes.
And
You
then
have to be an independent country to be a national society.
that's right. And then we became a national society. And since then, our progress has really been
Yes.
solid. We thank God that we've had no major disaster, major upheaval within the organization and within the country. But we now need to focus on your need for volunteers, Madam Director.
And if you will allow me, let me, because I think one of the challenges I had coming on as leader was that there was a stigma around Red Cross as being political.
Yes.
Because people don't quite understand how that went.
Yes.
And it was not that it was political.
No, it wasn't.
It was that the leader at the time, in any, at least in the Caribbean countries and in the English colonies, where you would have governor generals,
Yes.
the governor general is automatically
Yes.
the honorary patron
Yes.
of the Red Cross in country. And I think we've had this thing that, oh, the Red Cross belonged to a political party. No, the party of choice decided that they would adopt Red Cross, and we're going to work with Red Cross, and we're going to help them raise funds, because it was carried through from, we had the governors here, the old governors, their wives were always headed up,
Yes.
the Red Cross in country. And so it was more or less, it just flowed down the line.
That's the way.
know?
That's the way it is internationally.
Yeah, so we're
because-
never political, and I want people to understand that. We don't get involved in politics or what have you. Whomever wants to help us and choose to help us, we have executive committees, we have our board members, and we invite people, to come on and serve. So it isn't anything to do with politics.
Well, Madam Director, I believe I can discuss that with even more authority than yourself.
Yes.
Since I was in the midst of it.
Yes.
I was in the midst of it. As you said correctly, internationally, Red Cross and Red Crescent societies are headed by the dignitaries.
Yes, the governor's wives.
the wives, the wife of the president.
Yes.
So there's always that political sort of environment around it, even though they may not be functioning in that capacity. And throughout the world, that is the case. And in the Bahamas, we didn't have that, because when we became independent, the key person in Red Cross was Mrs. Lottie Tynes,
Yes.
who was a nurse with the association, and she was the most experienced. And so when we became independent and the charter was passed in the House of Assembly, I think in 1974, 75, she was automatically the Director General and well suited for that job. What happened later was the pressing need for funds, because unlike other countries which have experienced the value of Red Cross, our people have not, and they did not really give to the Red Cross as they should. The story is going to continue when we return.
Only love can save us now. Only love